The night my old life ended, my husband held my sister's hand and watched me lose everything. For 7 years, I gave him my money, my trust, my family's power, even my future. He called it love, she called it fate. But when I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day his empire collapsed. And this time, when he reached for my hand, I smiled and let him fall.
After I woke up, I stopped saving him. Chapter 1. A Rainy Night in Suzhou. My last memory of that life was an autumn rain in Suzhou. The rain fell like thin silver threads, scattering cold circles across Jinji Lake. Across the water, the 48-story Nansing building blazed like a blade held upright against the night. It was the company I had spent 7 years of youth rebuilding for Gu Huaisen. 2 sales of inherited shares, countless sleepless nights, and even the last of my reputation. Yet when I collapsed on the emergency stairwell of that very building, the first person to bend down and look at me was not Gu Huaisen. It was Xia Ziyan, my half-sister. She wore the almond-colored silk dress I had given her on her 20th birthday. On her wrist was my mother's jade bracelet. A soft smile rested on her lips, so sweet that an outsider might have mistaken it for grief. "Sister," she said, her voice light as a breath, "give up. Brother Huaisen never loved you. He only needed you to pull him out of the mud. Now that he is standing at the top again, the person who should be beside him is, of course, me." Warmth slipped from my temple into my lashes. I wanted to curse, to laugh, to ask her where she had found the nerve to say the words, "of course," but my throat closed. From the far end of the corridor came the slow sound of leather shoes. Gu Huaisen appeared beneath the cold white light. 7 years ago, when the Gu family went bankrupt, creditors shoved him down in front of Yunding Hotel. His suit was torn, his face was hurt, but his spine remained straight. I was the only one who walked through the crowd, draped my coat over his shoulders, called a car to take him to the hospital, and then helped him win Nansing back, piece by piece. I once believed that moment was fate. Looking back now, it was only a disaster wrapped in beautiful paper. Gu Huaisen looked at me. There was no panic in his eyes, and no pain. There was only a frightening calm, like a businessman who had just settled a difficult debt. "Mingzhu," he said, "do not make this bigger than it needs to be." I asked him, "Was even a small part of you ever sincere with me?" Gu Huaisen silenced. That silence answered for him. Xia Ziyan crouched down and used a handkerchief to wipe my cheek, like a gentle little sister, but her nails pressed into the wound until I trembled.
"Don't blame me, sister. In this life, you were born recognized by the Lu family. You attended the best schools, father favored you, your mother left you property. But my mother and I had to wait outside the door for so many years. I am only taking back a little. You should not be so unwilling to let go." Only a little. Her little was my mother's dignity, the company my mother had left behind, the marriage I had once trusted, and my entire life. The pain spread from my chest, cold and deep. As my vision blurred, I suddenly heard the familiar ring of my phone. On the cracked screen under my feet, 2 characters appeared. Mother. I wanted to reach for it. I wanted to tell her I was sorry, that I had lived too foolishly, but my fingers only moved slightly before falling back to the cold concrete. Before darkness swallowed everything, I thought silently, if there is another life, I will never save Gu Huaisen again. I will never allow Xia Ziyan to take anything that belongs to my mother and me. Then I opened my eyes. Above me was the white-painted ceiling of the Lu family villa in Shanghai's Xintiandi district. Outside the window, summer sunlight poured in, bright enough to hurt my eyes. The faint scent of magnolia tea drifted through the room. On the bedside table lay an old silver phone, the model I had used 8 years ago. I sat up sharply. In the mirror, my face was still young. There was no scar behind my ear from the car accident in the 3rd year of my marriage, no shadows under my eyes from endless nights with Nansing's legal department, no exhaustion of a woman drained to the final drop. With shaking hands, I picked up the phone. The date on the screen made my heart stop for a beat. June 17th, the exact day the Gu family announced bankruptcy. It was also the day in my previous life that Xia Ziyan dumped Gu Huaisen in front of Yunding Hotel, then secretly took the hard drive containing Nansing's sensor chip design and sold it to a competitor. Gu's father was so shaken that he collapsed. Gu's mother made a dangerous, irreversible choice with sleeping pills. Gu Huaisen was cornered by creditors in the street. And I, Lu Mingzhu, because of one moment of foolish softness, pulled him out of the crowd. With that one outstretched hand, I dragged my whole life down with him. The bedroom door opened. Xia Ziyan poked her head in. Her black hair was half tied back, and her eyes were clear like a young deer. "Sister, are you awake? Brother Huaisen asked me to meet him at Yunding tonight, but now that something has happened to his family, do you think I should go?" I looked at her. The 20-year-old Xia Ziyan still did not know how to hide the greed in the bottom of her eyes. She wore a white dress, and around her neck was my pearl necklace. It was the birthday gift my mother had left me before she passed away. In my previous life, I lent it to her because she said she wanted to look her best when meeting her boyfriend. After that, the necklace never returned to me. I lifted the blanket and got out of bed, walking straight toward her. Xia Ziyan smiled sweetly. "Why are you looking at me like that? Is there something on my face?"
I raised my hand. She thought I would adjust her collar as usual, so she even tilted her head slightly. But my hand did not stop at her collar. I unclasped the necklace directly from her neck. Xia Ziyan's smile stiffened. "Sister?" "Ziyan," I said, my voice strangely calm. "From today onward, do not wear my mother's things without permission." Her face went pale in an instant, then flushed red. "I only borrowed it for a while. Why are you being so petty?" I placed the necklace back into the velvet box on the table. "To borrow something, you ask first. Taking without asking is called stealing everywhere." She froze. Ever since her mother had been brought into the Lu family by my father, I had always yielded to her. I gave up the piano room, the driver, a summer school place in Beijing, even my father's small, scattered attention. I yielded so often that Xia Ziyan truly began to believe everything in this house could naturally fall into her hands. Today, I took back the first thing. From downstairs came my father's voice. "Mingzhu, Ziyan, come down for breakfast." Xia Ziyan lowered her head. Her eyes had already reddened. If this had been before, I would have panicked and comforted her. As long as she cried once, my father would assume I had used my position as the older daughter to bully her. But this time, I opened the door first and smiled. "Let's go. Breakfast is waiting. We can also tell father how you entered my room and took my things without asking." Behind me, Xia Ziyan's steps halted. In the dining room, my father, Lu Zhenghe, was reading the financial newspaper. Beside him, my stepmother, Qin Ya, placed a bowl of bird's nest congee on the table, gentle and virtuous, as if she had sacrificed her whole life for this family. In my previous life, she was the one behind Xia Ziyan, guiding her to take Nansing's confidential materials. Later, she used the money to win over Lu Group shareholders and slowly push my mother and me out of the company. I sat opposite them and calmly drank a sip of warm water. My father folded the newspaper. "The Gu family is in trouble tonight. Ziyan, don't go over there. Business people must learn to avoid risk. This time, the Gu family will be hard to save." Xia Ziyan bit her lip and pretended to be sorry. "But Huaisen and I were once—" "Once is once," Kenya continued softly, patting her daughter's hand. "You are still young. Don't let one relationship drag you down." They truly were mother and daughter. When a person still had value, they called it affection. When that person fell, they called it risk. I set down my spoon and asked my father, "Father, I want to go to Yunding tonight." All three of them looked at me. Xia Ziyan was the most shocked. "What are you going there for?" "To watch." I gave a faint smile. "I heard many creditors will be there, and the media too. A real lesson in risk management is far more useful than your MBA class." My father frowned. "Mingzhu, do not get involved with the Gu family's affairs. The Lu and Gu families used to cooperate, but right now it is best to keep distance." "I know." I looked at him and spoke slowly. "I only want to see who tries to profit from another family's fire. It will help Lu Group avoid the wrong partners in the future." Something moved in my father's eyes. He was a businessman. He disliked tangled emotions, but he appreciated children who could see interests clearly. In my previous life, it took me far too long to understand that to speak with him, I had to use his language. After several seconds of silence, he nodded. "Fine. Old Chen will take you." Xia Ziyan tightened her grip on the napkin. I could clearly see her nails pressing into her palm. She was afraid I would go, because tonight she was not merely going to break up with Gu Huaisen, she was also going to take the last thing from the man who had lost his value, the hard drive containing Nansing's sensor algorithm that had not yet been registered for protection.
In my previous life, I knew nothing about it. I only saw Gu Huaisen standing in the rain, abandoned by the whole world, and my foolish heart softened. In this life, I would stand under the eaves and watch them finish their performance, and when the curtain fell, the person dragged into the light would not be me.
Chapter 2. The Man I Would Not Save. Yunding Hotel stood beside the Huangpu River, its glass facade reflecting black clouds rolling across the Shanghai sky. When the Lu family's car stopped at the entrance, reporters had already crowded both sides of the red carpet. Camera flashes flickered without pause. The air was heavy with the scent of rain and the metallic smell of filming equipment set up in a hurry. I did not get out at once. Through the tinted glass, I saw Gu Huaisen standing beneath the hotel awning. He was 26, much younger than the man in my memory. His white shirt was slightly wrinkled, his hair wet from the rain, his features sharp and cold. Even though the Gu family had fallen from the peak overnight, he still held himself as if he refused to bow. That posture had moved me. I had mistaken it for backbone. Only later did I learn that for some people, refusing to bow is not proof of strength. It is only because they are waiting for someone else to kneel and pave the road. A taxi stopped at the entrance. Zian stepped out wearing a thin cardigan and holding a small black leather bag. She had not used the family car because she feared my father would find out, but she had not forgotten to do her makeup carefully. Her eyes were already red, her lips pale. She looked like a pear blossom beaten by rain. When Gu Huaisen saw her, his eyes brightened for a moment. "Zian!" He walked toward her. Zian stepped back half a pace, just enough for the cameras to capture the image of a fragile young woman being held back by her ruined lover. "Huaisen, I'm sorry." Her voice was not loud, but it was enough for the nearby microphones to catch. "I cannot continue with you. My mother is right. Love cannot feed a person. I have a family, and I have a future." Sitting in the car, I laughed very softly. In my previous life, this sentence had cut Gu Huaisen like a blade and made everyone pity him. As for me, the bystander at the edge, I had foolishly thought Zian was cruel and Gu Huaisen was pitiful. But if one listened carefully, Zian was not exactly wrong. She was wrong only because before leaving, she still wanted to scrape away the last valuable thing he had. Gu Huaisen pressed his lips together. "I can stand up again, just give me time." "Time?" Zian smiled sadly. "Gu Huaisen, you know better than I do how much your family owes. I am not a saint. I cannot gamble my entire life on you." The reporters began to whisper. The creditors on the other side also started moving forward. A short, heavy-set man shoved Gu Huaisen's shoulder. "Young Master Gu, why are you still acting devoted? Your father signed a personal guarantee, and now he is in the hospital. Who is paying this debt?" Gu Huaisen clenched his hand and his eyes darkened. Taking advantage of the chaos, Zian stepped close to him. Through the car window, I saw her tilt slightly. Her hand slid into Gu Huaisen's coat pocket so quickly that no one would have noticed without knowing beforehand. A small silver hard drive dropped into Zian's bag. I opened the car door. Old Chen hurried over with an umbrella. "Eldest miss, there are many people here. Please be careful." "It's fine." I stepped out, my heels touching the wet stone. "It's okay. The more people, the better." My appearance turned the reporter's lenses. Lu Mingzhu, the eldest daughter of the Lu family, heir to the shares her biological mother had left in Lu Group. A year ago, I had graduated in commercial law from Beijing and was preparing to enter the company's legal department. To Shanghai's financial media, I was not the central figure, but I was interesting enough.
When Zian saw me, her face changed immediately. "Sister, why are you here?" I walked to her side and smiled. "You can come, but I cannot." She lowered her voice. "Don't cause trouble." "Cause trouble?" I looked at her leather bag in her hand. "I only want to remind you that if you break up, then break up. Other people's belongings should still be returned." Gu Huaisen looked at me, his gaze passing over my face before settling on Zian. "What do you mean?" Zian instantly began to cry. "Huaisen, my sister has misunderstood. I didn't take anything from you." "Then open the bag," I said. The crowd fell strangely quiet. People enjoy watching the rich fall from grace. They enjoy even more watching a wealthy beauty's mask come off. The flashes began again. Zian clutched the bag tightly. "On what basis can you force me to open my bag? This is my private property." I was in no hurry. on the basis that protecting trade secrets is a legal duty. If there is nothing inside, I will apologize in front of the media. But if there is, Xian, you should prepare to explain why something belonging to Nansing is inside your bag." Her face paled. Gu Huaisen seemed finally to realize something. He reached into his coat pocket, and his expression changed. "Where is my hard drive?" A creditor beside him sneered. "Wonderful. Young Master Gu, your company has collapsed and someone is still stealing secrets. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter indeed." Shazian shook her head, her tears falling faster. "It wasn't me, Huaisen. Believe me, my sister has disliked me since childhood. She is doing this on purpose." She could use that sentence for a lifetime without getting tired. My sister never liked me. My sister is hurting me on purpose. As long as she said that, all her mistakes could be turned into injustices she had suffered, and I, the firm and cold eldest daughter, naturally became the villain. But today we were not in the Lu family living room. Today we stood before reporters, lawyers, creditors, hotel security, and dozens of phones broadcasting live. I turned to the hotel manager. "Please call the police. Also, the hotel has cameras in the lobby, correct? Miss Shah stood very close to Mr. Gu just now. It should be possible to check." Once named, the manager could no longer pretend to be invisible. He quickly nodded. Yes, there are cameras." Shazian truly panicked. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "Sister, we are family. Must you humiliate me in front of everyone?" I looked down at her hand. "Family? You said the same when you took my mother's necklace without asking. You're saying it again after taking your former boyfriend's hard drive. Xian, family is not a free pass for bad behavior." Gu Huaisen stepped forward and snatched Shazian's bag. She cried out, but it was too late. The silver hard drive fell out in front of everyone. Noise erupted like boiling water. Shazian trembled and stepped back. I only wanted to keep it safe for you. I was afraid you would lose it." Gu Huaisen looked at her as if she were a stranger. He had been proud and cold, but at that moment there was a real crack in his eyes. In my previous life, he never knew that Shazian was the one who had struck him from behind. He thought she had only left him because he was poor, so after succeeding, he became even more obsessed with that unfinished old love. And I, the one who bore every hardship in her place, was treated as proof of the low years he wanted to forget. In this life, I tore away the curtain from the beginning.
The police arrived quickly. Shazian was invited to cooperate with the investigation. Before getting into the car, she turned back to look at me. Her eyes were no longer clear. They were filled with resentment. "Lu Mingzhu, you will regret this." I smiled. "I returned those words to you." After the police car left, the crowd still did not disperse. Gu Huaisen stood amid all those tangled gazes, gripping the hard drive. Rain soaked the shoulders of his shirt. In my previous life, this was the moment I held out an umbrella to him. I remembered clearly how he had looked up at me then, his black eyes deep as a pool, his voice hoarse. "Miss Lu, why are you helping me?" I also remembered my answer. "Because I think you do not deserve to be treated like this." That sentence became the chain that bound me for 7 years. Now Gu Huaisen looked toward me again. In his eyes were surprise, wariness, and a complicated trace of gratitude. "Miss Lu, thank you for today." I opened my umbrella, but I did not offer it to him. I held it above myself and stepped half a pace back. "No need to thank me. I did not help you. I simply did not want my sister to sell trade secrets for money and drag the Lu family into the water." He fell silent. I continued. "Mr. Gu, the Gu family's bankruptcy is the Gu family's matter. I will not invest, guarantee, lend you money, or handle the media for you. If you still want to stand up again, find your own lawyer, negotiate with your own creditors, and protect what remains by yourself." Gu Huaisen looked at me, perhaps not expecting me to be so direct. Rain ran down the bridge of his nose, making his face seem even sharper. "Do you hate me?" I thought for a moment, then hid my head. "No, I simply do not want to repeat a mistake." He did not understand that sentence. I did not need him to. I turned and got back into the car. Through the rear window, I saw Gu Huaisen still standing there, alone in the rain, like a pine tree struck by lightning but not yet broken. Old Chen asked, "Eldest Miss, shall we go home?" "No." I removed my gloves and wiped the water from my wrist. "Take me to Lawyer Song's office." In my previous life, after saving Gu Huaisen, I missed the most important matter, protecting my mother's legacy. Only 3 months later, Qin Ya used the excuse of managing household affairs to place her people in Lu Group's finance department. Xia Ziyan used the money from selling Nanxing's secret to buy scattered shares. My father, wanting to balance both sides, forced me to give up part of my voting rights. From then on, I lost Lu Group step by step. In this life, I had to sign the share trust documents before they could act. Lawyer Song's office was on West Nanjing Road, on the 12th floor of an old building. She had been my mother's close friend, a woman in her 50s with short hair and eyes sharp as a paper knife. In my previous life, she had reminded me many times to beware of Qin Ya and her daughter. I did not listen. By the time I wanted to find her again, she had been forced out of Shanghai after a case pressured by Lu Group. When I saw her again, I almost cried. "Mingzhu," she was surprised. "Why are you here so suddenly?" I placed a folder on her desk. "Ansung, I want to activate the protection clause in Mother's will. All the shares and personal assets Mother left me will be transferred into an independent trust. Before I turn 30, any transfer must bear both my signature and the approval of the supervisory board."
Lawyer Song looked at me for a long time. "Who told you about this clause?" "Mother mentioned it in a letter. I told a half-truth. Before, I did not understand. Now, I do." She slowly removed her glasses. "What happened?" I looked down at my hands. The marks left by Zijazin's nails were still red. I could not tell her I had died once, but I could tell her the most important part. I do not want anyone to use family affection to force me to hand over what Mother left behind. Lawyer Song's eyes softened. "You have finally grown up." "No, Aunt Song, I have not grown up. I have only died once." That night, when I returned to the Lu residence, the living room was brightly lit. My father sat in the main chair, his face dark. Qin Ya's eyes were swollen from crying. Zijazin had been bailed out and was kneeling on the carpet, her shoulders trembling. As soon as Qin Ya saw me, she stood up. "Mingzhu, I know Ziyan was wrong, but what you did was almost the same as ruining her life. She is your sister." I handed my coat to a servant and asked calmly, "If I had not exposed her today, and tomorrow Nansing sued the Lu family for conspiring to steal trade secrets, would you step forward and take responsibility?" Qin Ya choked. My father slammed his hand on the table. "Enough. Ziyan, explain clearly, why was that hard drive in your bag?" Zijazin sobbed. "I was confused for a moment. I was afraid that if Huaisen had nothing left, he would do something reckless, so I wanted to keep it for him. I never planned to sell it, truly, father." I pulled out a chair and sat down. "Then why are there messages on your phone with an assistant from Dongko Group? 3 million yuan, delivery today." Zijazin's head snapped up. Her face lost all color. I placed a copy of the messages on the table. At the hotel, I asked the lawyer to preserve the evidence. The police have also extracted part of the data. "Ziyan, do you want to continue explaining?" Qin Ya rushed forward to snatch the paper, but my father was faster. He picked it up and read. His expression grew worse with each line. The house became so quiet that the ticking of the pendulum clock could be heard. Finally, my father stood and struck Ziyan across the face. The sound was dry and sharp. Ziyan held her cheek and stared at him in disbelief. Since the day she entered the Lu family, she had always been the little daughter who needed compensation. My father had never spoken harshly to her, let alone punished her. I knew the gesture was not about morality. It was because she had nearly dragged Lu Group into a commercial crime. To my father, a daughter who could cry might be pitiful, but a daughter foolish enough to endanger the group was not forgivable. Qin Ya held her daughter and pleaded through her tears. I no longer looked at them. I said only to my father, "I have asked Aunt Song to handle Mother's trust. From tomorrow, my shares will separate voting rights from family management, and I will also enter Lu Group's legal department earlier than planned." My father turned to me, his gaze deep and unreadable. "Are you informing me?" "Yes," I stood. "I am not asking permission. This is my right." It had taken me 7 years in my previous life to learn how to say that sentence. In this life, I said it on the first day I returned.
Chapter 3. The Game of the One Who Returned. 3 days later, the news that Xia Ziyan had stolen her former boyfriend's hard drive became a top topic on Weibo. The media did not call her the Lu family's precious young lady as she had wished. They called her the wealthy stepdaughter who stole trade secrets. The footage from the lobby of Yinding Hotel was cut into countless versions. The moment she cried and said she could not gamble with her future, the moment I demanded she open her bag, the moment the hard drive fell onto the marble floor.
Every frame was like a slap. Qinya used every connection she had to remove the posts, but the more she tried to take them down, the more netizens saved them. In the end, she could only take Shazian to the suburban villa to avoid the storm. Before leaving, Shazian stood outside my bedroom door, her eyes bloodshot. "Are you satisfied now?" I was choosing a suit to wear to Lu Group the next day. Hearing her, I did not turn around. "Not yet." She froze. "What else do you want?" I closed the wardrobe and walked to her. "Return everything you have taken from my room. The pearl necklace is back. There is still grandfather's fountain pen set, the handwritten sheet music from my mother, the silver hairpin in the red box, and the library account password you used under my name to borrow materials and never return them." Shazian's eyes widened. "You remember every tiny thing?" "No," I looked at her. "Before, I didn't remember because I thought you were my sister. Now I remember because you are only an outsider who stayed too long in my home." Her lips trembled. "Lu Mingzhu, do not think winning once means winning forever. Father still cares about me. My mother is still Mrs. Lu, and you are merely relying on what your mother left behind." I nodded. "Correct. That is why I must hold on even more tightly." She had no words to refute me. A person accustomed to using morals to force others to yield becomes very awkward when the other person openly admits to being selfish about what belongs to them. After Shazian left, I opened the wooden box beneath my dressing table. Inside was a blue-covered notebook my mother had left me. My mother, Wen Yi, had once been famous in Suzhou's investment circles. She could drink tea with a Guqin master in the morning, and by afternoon sit in a conference room forcing German partners to reduce technology transfer fees by 3 percentage points. When she passed away from illness, I was only 17. She left me shares, properties, several letters, and one warning. "Mingzhu, kindness has to have a door. No one is allowed to come and go freely." In my previous life, I didn't understand that sentence. I opened the notebook and wrote down 3 names: Shazian, Qinya, Gu Huaisen. Then I added a 4th name, Donka.
Dongke Group was the competitor that had bought the hard drive from Shazian in my previous life. After receiving Nansing's algorithm, they launched a product 3 months early and forced the Gu family to lose its last bargaining chip. But I remembered that Gu Huaisen once said while drunk that the design Shazian took was incomplete. It had a flaw in its data security layer. Dongke used it too quickly and suffered a customer information leak. They simply used connections to cover it up. In this life, I had no intention of helping anyone cover it up. The next morning, I entered Lu Group headquarters in Lujiazui as a special assistant to the legal department. In the elevator, several employees looked at me with curiosity. News of trouble within the Lu family had already spread everywhere. Some pitied Shazian. Some said I had acted too ruthlessly. I did not care. A person who had once been pushed down a stairwell would no longer fear being called cold. The head of the legal department, a middle-aged man surnamed Zheng, who wore gold-rimmed glasses, greeted me with a proper smile. In my previous life, he had been Qinya's man. He had helped draft the agreement that made me lose voting rights, then testified that every signature had been voluntary. "Eldest miss, since you are new to the company, you should first familiarize yourself with simple files." He handed me a thin folder. "The major cases can be handled by those with experience." I accepted it, flipped through a few pages, and placed it down. "Where is the supply contract with Dongke?" His smile stiffened. "That matter is being handled by Deputy Director Liu." "I want to see it." "I'm afraid that is not convenient. The contract has a high confidentiality level." I looked at him. "I represent the Wen Yi Trust and hold supervision rights over risks involving the assets my mother left in Lu Group. Clause 7.3 of the will allows me to request any contract that may affect the value of those shares. Director Zheng, do you need me to submit a formal written request?" He had not expected me to know the clause so clearly. After a few seconds, he called his secretary to retrieve the file. I knew there was a trap in that contract. In my previous life, after the Nansing incident, Dongke quickly signed a cooperation agreement with Lu Group on smart home sensor systems. 6 months later, the product failed, and Lu Group had to compensate because of a joint liability clause. At that time, Qinya placed the blame on my legal team and forced me out of management. This time, I read every line. On page 27, I stopped. The data liability clause was written very cleverly.
If Dongke's system caused a failure but was deployed on Lu Group's infrastructure, Lu Group would bear primary responsibility to the end users. It was a deep pit, covered by a few elegant phrases about strategic cooperation. I circled it in red, then wrote a 3-page legal opinion and sent it directly to my father, copying the board of directors. By afternoon, the entire legal floor was silent. Director Zheng entered my office with a dark expression. "Miss Lu, this company has procedures. By skipping levels like this, you make things difficult for everyone." I looked up. "This clause creates a possible compensation risk of up to 800 million yuan. If I kept it in my drawer and waited for your procedure, who would take responsibility later?" He lowered his voice. "You have just entered the company. Do not make things so tense. In any case, Mrs. Lu has already reviewed this contract." I smiled. "Then it is even more necessary to be tense. Mrs. Lu holds no executive position. In what capacity did she review the contract?" His face changed. I knew that sentence would reach Qinya's ears within 10 minutes. Sure enough, that night my father called me to his study. Qinya was there too. She had changed into a jade-green chapao. She looked haggard, but still maintained an elegant manner.
"Mingzhu," she spoke first, "I know you are still angry about Ziyan, but the company is not a place for you to vent your emotions. The cooperation with Dongke is a project your father has considered for a long time." I looked at my father. "Have you read my legal opinion?" My father set down the documents. "I have." "Then what do you think?" He was silent. I knew he had seen the problem. His pride simply would not allow him to admit it in front of Qinya. I took another folder from my bag. "This is a technical report I had someone prepare on Dongke's new sensor product. There are signs they used a module that has not passed independent verification. In addition, their business assistant contacted Xia Ziyan to purchase Nansing data. If Lu Group still signs and an incident later occurs, the media will connect 4 words: Lu family collusion." Qinya struck the armrest of her chair. "You are slandering us." I turned toward her. "Aunt Qin, I am talking about Dongke. Why are you so upset?" She choked on her words. My father looked at her, suspicion finally appearing in his eyes. "Yaya, who introduced Dongke?" Qinya tightened her handkerchief. "It was an old friend. I only thought they were capable." I did not let it pass. "That old friend's name is Ma Jianping, currently vice president of Dongke. 12 years ago, he once invested with you in a trading company in Hangzhou. The company was dissolved after being sued for contract fraud. Aunt Qin, do you need me to read the case number?" The room went dead silent. My father slowly stood. "Cheng He, that was long ago. I was afraid you would misunderstand." "Not telling someone is exactly what makes them misunderstand," I added softly. Qinya's gaze swept toward me, sharp as a needle. I did not avoid it. In my previous life, she had pretended to cry beside my mother's bedside, then used my father's pity to enter the Lu family. She understood very well how to turn silence into a weapon. Unfortunately for her, this time, so did I. In the end, my father ordered the signing with Dongke suspended and formed an internal inspection team. Director Zheng was removed from the project. This was my first victory inside Lu Group. But I knew the game had only begun. 1 week later, I received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was a hoarse male voice. "Miss Lu, this is Gu Huaisen." I looked at the screen and stayed silent for a few seconds. "What is it?" "I have found evidence that Dongke bought data. I want to meet you." I looked through my office window. It was raining in Shanghai again. Raindrops struck the glass and blurred the lights into long streaks. "You should meet the police or your lawyer." "Lawyers need money. The police need a chain of evidence. I only have a few documents, but you can use them to strike Dongke. In exchange, I want Lu Group to cancel all cooperation with Dongke and publicly state the reason. Nansing needs room to breathe." In my previous life, if I had heard those words, I would have softened immediately. I would have thought he was resilient, that he was not asking for money, but justice. Now I heard something else. Gu Huaisen was very good at choosing the person who could help him. He didn't come because of gratitude. He came because of interest. That was not wrong. Business people exchange interests. I had simply mistaken interest for love in my previous life. I said, "Send the materials to my lawyer first. If they have value, I will have the legal department contact you. There is no need for a private meeting." There was silence on the other end. "Are you that guarded against me?" "Mr. Gua, I am guarded against everyone who has ever stood near my misfortune." I ended the call. 10 minutes later, an encrypted email arrived. Inside, an audio recording of Dongke's assistant negotiating with Xia Ziyan, deposit transfer records, and an internal file proving that Dongke knew the algorithm did not belong to them. Gu Huaisen was indeed not useless. Even after falling to the bottom, he could still bite back at his enemy hard enough to draw blood.
2 days later, Lu Group announced the termination of cooperation with Dongke due to intellectual property and data security risks. The same day, Nansing filed a lawsuit against Dongke, demanding compensation and a ban on using the related technology. The financial media exploded. Dongke Group's stock price fell for 3 consecutive trading days. Gu Huaisen called me again, but I did not answer. I knew he would rise again. A person like him would always find a way back as long as he could still breathe. But this time I would not pave that road for him. I also knew Jia Ziyan would not let go easily. Sure enough, just when everything seemed to quiet, a long post appeared online. The writer claimed to be Jia Ziyan's classmate and said that since childhood she had suffered as the stepdaughter bullied by her older sister. After entering the Lu family, she had always lived cautiously, not even daring to wear jewelry. The post implied that I had deliberately framed her in front of the media because I was jealous of her beauty and love. The post was skillful. It did not directly deny the hard drive. It turned the matter into a small mistake made by a pitiful girl under emotional pressure, and I became the domineering heiress who used the law to crush her younger sister. Public opinion began to split. Lu Group's media staff came to me anxiously. "Miss Lu, do we need to issue a statement?" I read the post and suddenly laughed. Jia Ziyan had not changed. She always believed tears could defeat evidence. "No statement," I said. "Post the video." "Which video?" I opened my personal storage drive. Inside was footage from the second-floor corridor camera in the Lu villa. Jia Ziyan entering my room without permission, searching my jewelry box, then calling a friend and saying, "My sister's things are wasted sitting there. They look better on me." In my previous life, I discovered that camera too late. By then, the data had been erased. In this life, on the first day I returned, I backed up everything. I also selected a recording. It was the call between Jia Ziyan and Dongke's assistant, extracted by the police. The part that didn't affect the investigation had been approved for release through a lawyer. In the recording, Jia Ziyan's voice was clear. 3 million yuan is too low. This is enough for you to force Nansing to its knees. I want 5 million yuan, transferred to my mother's account in Hangzhou." That night, the trending turned. Everyone who had just pitied her fell silent. Some accounts that had scolded me deleted their posts. But the internet has a short memory and a long cruelty. Users quickly found earlier posts in which Jia Ziyan showed off luxury items and used the phrase, "a gift from my sister," to legitimize things taken from my room. Her pear blossom in the rain image shattered completely. Qin Ya called me more than a dozen times. I turned off my phone. Near midnight, my father knocked on my door. He stood in the hallway, seeming to have aged several years. "Mingzhu," he said, "must you take it this far?" I looked at him. This father had once carried me on his shoulders to see lanterns in Suzhou. He had once promised my mother he would protect me for life. But after my mother passed, he was too lonely, too desperate for a complete family, so he chose to close his eyes to every crack. In my previous life, I resented him. In this life, I still did, but I no longer expected him to change. "Father," I said, "if I were the one being ruined today, would you ask Jia Ziyan this question?" He could not answer. I closed the door and leaned my back against the cold wood. Outside, my father stood for a long time before leaving. I did not cry. My tears had already run dry in my previous life, on the cold concrete floor of the Nansing building. From now on, I would only count debts. Chapter 4. The Wind Turns Over the Huangpu. Autumn came earlier than usual that year. The plane trees on West Fuxing Road had only just turned yellow when Lu Group entered an extraordinary shareholders meeting. On paper, the reason was a review of strategic cooperation risks. Everyone knew the real goal was to clear Qin Ya's influence out of the company. In 3 short months, the internal inspection team found problems in 5 contracts introduced through Qin Ya's acquaintances. Some inflated equipment prices, some moved benefits through shell companies, some inserted clauses unfavorable to Lu Group. In the past, all of it had been hidden beneath the polite phrase, "the chairman's wife is only helping connect relationships." Once the curtain was lifted, everything underneath smelled of mold. My father no longer had any way to protect her. In the conference room on the 36th floor, I sat as the representative of the Wen Yi Trust. In front of me was a nameplate, Lu Mingzhu.
Not the Lu family's eldest daughter, not Xia Zuyan's older sister, and certainly not Gu Huaisen's future wife. Only Lu Mingzhu, the lawful holder of shares and voting rights. Qin Ya sat at the far end of the table, her face pale. She was still elegant, but her eyes were no longer calm. Xia Zuyan did not appear. After the recording incident, she had suspended her studies and was under school disciplinary review for using falsified documents in her scholarship file. The door to the elite circle she had tried so hard to enter had slammed in her face. The head of the supervisory committee read each conclusion. Shareholders murmured. My father sat in the chairman's seat, fingers resting on the documents, saying nothing. When it was time to vote on removing certain related personnel, I raised my hand first. Qin Ya looked at me. There was no longer a gentle stepmother in her eyes, only hatred. After the meeting, she stopped me in the hallway. Mingzhu, I once truly wanted to treat you well. I stopped. Aunt Qin, you should say that in front of my mother's grave and see whether she believes you. Her face went white. Your mother has been gone for many years. The living must look forward. Xia Zuyan and I only wanted a place in this family. Why can you not be a little more generous? I looked at her and suddenly remembered that I had once asked myself the same question in my previous life. Why could I not be generous? Why could I not forgive my sister? Why could I not accept that Gu Huaisen still owed Xia Zuyan a piece of old affection? Why could I not let my father have a peaceful home? The result of generosity was that I lost my life on a stairwell while they divided everything that had been mine. I can be generous towards someone who loses their way and turns back. I cannot be generous towards someone who holds a knife while asking me to understand their hardship. Qin Ya laughed, the sound dry. Do you think you have won? Gu Huaisen is rebuilding Nansing. Do you know he went to see Xia Zuyan a few days ago? Men like him never forget the person who once lived in their heart. You worked so hard to hurt Xia Zuyan, and in the end, perhaps you will still lose. I could not help laughing. So in their eyes, my life still had to revolve around a man. Whether I won or lost was not measured by shares, justice, or freedom, but whom Gu Huaisen chose. Aunt Qin, you lost precisely because you think that way. So does Xia Zuyan. I walked past her without looking back. But Qin Ya's words were not entirely false. 1 week later, Gu Huaisen did appear at the entrance of Lu Group.
He was thinner than before, but the sharpness had returned to his eyes. Through the lawsuit against Dong Ke, Nansing had regained media attention. An investment fund in Shenzhen had agreed to provide bridge financing. The Gu family had not returned to the top, but at least it was no longer trapped at the edge of destruction. I had just finished a meeting when I saw him standing beside the planter in the lobby. Employees walking in and out glanced at him secretly. Gu Huaisen had once been rumored as Xia Ziyan's fiancé. After the scandal, he had become the pitiful victim. Any interaction between him and a member of the Lu family was enough to feed imagination. I signaled my assistant to go ahead, then stopped 3 steps away from him. Mr. Gu, what is it? He handed me a paper bag. Supplementary materials on Dong Ke. The lawyer said sending them to you would be faster. Documents can be emailed. There is another matter. He looked at me. I wanted to thank you in person. If not for you, I would not have known what Ziyan did behind my back. Nansing would not have had the chance to sue Dong Ke. I took the paper bag, but did not respond to his emotion. I already said I did not help you for your sake. But the result is that you did help me, he paused. Lu Mingzhu, had we met before? My heart moved slightly, but my face did not change. At a few business banquets. Not like that, he looked at me deeply. I always feel that you know more about me than a stranger should. You look at me as if you are looking at an old debt. I suddenly found it amusing. Gu Huaisen was indeed perceptive. In my previous life, that same perceptiveness helped him seize every opportunity. It also helped him use silence to make me sacrifice willingly. Perhaps because Mr. Gu resembles a kind of person I once read about in a book. What kind of person? The kind who, when fallen, makes others want to save him, and when successful, makes the person who saved him regret it. His expression changed. I handed the paper bag to my assistant, who had just returned. The materials will be processed according to procedure. In the future, contact Lu Group's lawyers. We do not need to meet privately. I was about to leave when Gu Huaisen called after me. Mingzhu. This was the first time in this life that he called my name without my family name. I turned back. He said, if the person who broke up with me then had not been Xia Ziyan,
If the person standing beside me had been you, would everything have been different? The question landed like a stone in an old lake. For an instant, I saw countless nights from my previous life, sitting with him in a dark office, eating cold instant noodles while revising loan clauses line by line, drinking in his place at business dinners until I became seriously ill, hearing him say, "After Nansing stabilizes, I will give you the wedding you deserve," standing at Nansing's stock listing ceremony before watching him embrace Xia Ziyan before the cameras and say it was only a media misunderstanding. Would it have been different? It had already been different once. I had once stood beside him. The result was that I lost myself. I looked straight into his eyes. "Mr. Gu, there is no if back then in this world. There is only from now on." Then from now on. "From now on, you walk your road and I walk mine." I cut him off. "I wish Nansing survival, but do not expect to exchange old gratitude for me again." He stood where he was. This time, I did not look back.
At the end of the year, the Dengke lawsuit produced a preliminary result. The court issued a temporary injunction requiring Dengke to stop using modules related to the disputed algorithm. Dengke's stock price continued to tumble. Vice President Ma Jianping was investigated on suspicion of commercial bribery. The Hangzhou account under Qin Ya's name was also frozen to verify fund flows. Qin Ya and my father separated. Xia Ziyan came to see me one last time on an afternoon of first snow in Suzhou. I was at my mother's old house on Pingjiang Road, preparing to turn it into a private reading room and a scholarship foundation for female law students. The ginkgo tree in the courtyard had shed yellow leaves everywhere, and a thin layer of snow clung to the tiled roof. She had grown much thinner. There was no white dress, no pearls. She wore only a gray coat, her lips cracked from the cold. "Sister," she called, her voice hoarse, "I truly have nothing left." I stood beneath the eaves and looked at her through the falling snow. "You still have your mother." She gave a miserable laugh. "My mother only blames me for being useless. My father will not see me. The school suspended me. My friends blocked my number. Gu Huaisen will not answer my calls. Are you satisfied now?" She had asked this question many times. This time I finally answered honestly. "It is not satisfaction, it is closure." She raised her head. "You never saw me as your sister, did you?" I was silent for a moment. I did, once. Of course I had. When she first entered the Lu family, hugging an old doll and standing behind Qin Ya, I had once thought she was pitiful. I had taken her to buy books, taught her to use my mother's piano, and protected her when classmates called her illegitimate. But kindness was not returned with kindness. It only fed greed. Xia Ziyan cried, "Then why are you so cruel now?" I looked at the snow falling on her shoulders, so light it almost had no weight. "Because in this life I want to live." She did not understand. She would never understand. To her, other people living well was unfair to her. Other people keeping what belonged to them was cruelty to her. Other people refusing to sacrifice was selfishness. She wiped her tears and suddenly knelt. "Help me one last time, just once. I want to go to Guangzhou and start over, but my mother's account has been frozen and I have no money. Lend me some. I will pay you back later." I remembered how in my previous life I had also knelt. I knelt outside an operating room, begging Gu Huaisen to save my mother, because by then all my assets were controlled by a trust under his authority. He did not sign. He said my mother's condition no longer held hope, and that we should not waste medical resources. At the same time, he transferred money to Xia Ziyan so she could open an art gallery in Paris. The cold wind crossed the courtyard. My heart was strangely calm. "Xia Ziyan, adults must bear their own consequences. You really will not help?" "No." She stood. The plea in her eyes turned into hatred. "Lu Mingzhu, you will be lonely your whole life." I smiled. If the people around me only want to drain me, loneliness is not so bad. Xia Ziyan turned and ran into the snow. Her figure quickly disappeared at the end of Pingjiang Alley. I did not know where she would go afterward. Perhaps Guangzhou, perhaps Hangzhou with Qin Ya, perhaps towards another man on whom she could hang her life. But that was no longer my story.
The following spring, Lu Group completed its restructuring of the legal department and internal control system. I was appointed the youngest chief risk officer in the company's history. At the appointment ceremony, my father said one sentence: "Mingzhu is more like her mother than I imagined." I looked at the front row. The seat beside my father was empty. Qin Ya was no longer the Mrs. Lu who appeared at every event. Xia Ziyan was absent as well. After the ceremony, Lawyer Song took me to the cemetery outside Suzhou to visit my mother. Before her grave, I placed a bouquet of white magnolias. Spring wind moved through the pines, carrying the scent of damp earth and the faint fragrance of flowers. I told my mother about the trust, about Dongke, about taking back the old house, and about the reading room that would soon open. Finally, I said, "Mother, I did not save him again." Lawyer Song stood behind me and did not know whom I meant, but she did not ask. I lowered my head and touched the cold gravestone. In the photograph, my mother was still smiling gently, her eyes bright and calm. I suddenly realized that revenge is not the moment when one's enemies fall in a sorry state. True revenge is when I am no longer dragged into the old dream by them. It is when their names no longer make my heart ache. It is when I can stand before my mother's grave and say that her daughter has kept herself. In April, the Wenyi Reading Room opened on Pingjiang Road. On opening day, Suzhou's sky was unusually clear. The first female students to receive scholarships stood beneath the eaves for photos. They smiled brightly, holding law books in their arms, their eyes full of future. Watching them, I felt that a new life had truly begun here. That afternoon, I received a package with no sender listed. Inside was the black umbrella I had once left behind at Yunding Hotel, and a short card. "Thank you for not saving me in the old way. Gu Huaisen." I looked at the card for a while, then placed it in a file drawer without replying. Outside the window, people moved leisurely along Pingjiang Road. A little flower seller passed by, calling out fresh magnolias. The sound of oars against the canal drifted back, slow and peaceful. I opened the window. Wind carried the fragrance of flowers into the room and gently turned the pages on my desk. In my previous life, I always thought my life had to be tied to someone, to my father, to my sister, to Gu Huaisen, to a marriage outsiders praised as a perfect match. I tried to be the sensible daughter, the tolerant older sister, the devoted wife. I performed every role until I was exhausted, and in the end, I was left in a hallway where no one truly grieved. This life, I only want to be Lu Mingzhu. I will not save those who are not worth saving. I will not give away what should not be given away. I will not love someone who only knows how to take, and I will never apologize for surviving. That evening, I brewed myself a pot of Longjing tea. On the table lay the 5-year plan for the Scholarship Foundation. Beside it was Lu Group's new investment contract with a clean technology company in Hangzhou. I read each page and signed my name at the end. Black ink appeared strong against white paper. Lu Mingzhu.
Hey there! If you enjoy our audio content, don't forget to hit that like button and share this video with your friends. Most importantly, click subscribe and ring the bell to stay updated with everything Zuzu Audio. Support the channel and join our community today.